Environmental factors in the business plan. Chapter 4 is where we start our discussion today. When we look at these environmental factors, which include social, economic, technological, competitive, and then last but not least, legal, it's important to understand that the environmental factors should have a positive influence, or at least an influence that moves the business in a positive direction based upon how you're planning it. So let's take a look at social factors. These social factors include a social audit that can be done, and this is development of social responsibility efforts. It's a systematic assessment of what you're doing. The second component of the social environmental factor is demographics. So, of course, this includes age, income, culture, diversity, a number of different demographic elements that we can select from. And then the third factor is the code of ethics that we look at. So it's a formal statement of our our ethical principles. It's a rules of the road or conduct for us. The economic factors and how they influence the business really can be broken down into three key areas. Income, which is your discretionary or disposable income. The income that you have after you paid primary bills helps determine whether or not you're able to save with that or spend again. But to have that additional income is extremely important from an economic standpoint. Attitude about spending or saving. And then the lifestyles, a pattern of living, and the totality of the person you are and how you live your life have an influence in the development of the business plan. From a technology standpoint, we really need to take a look at pace, the consumer value, and the amount of change. Pace meaning that technology will move very quickly, and it comes in shifts and in starts. So it's important to understand that we may be riding the crest of a technological wave, and then we may be in the real lower part of a technological downpull. From a consumer standpoint, the value that's created through either marketing or your product development is extremely important, and how that's presented to you technologically, and whether or not that's a technology product and offering that presents efficiency and productivity for you as the consumer. And then last but not least, when we look at that business plan, there's going to be change involved from a technological standpoint. So does that change our behavior and our thought process about the products and offering? And more importantly, how does performance come into play? If it performs well, then it has a greater likelihood for us to make another purchase, which is important in business. If it doesn't perform as well technologically, then the opportunity to present itself to sell again may not be there. From a competitive standpoint, and understand that competition for businesses is really a lifeblood. And what I mean by that is that it's important to have competition in the workplace, or excuse me, in the marketplace, but at the same time, we want to be able to mitigate competition as much as possible. So the brand that we develop and the industry we operate in, and whether or not we're perceived as being generic in how we operate, is extremely important. And we're primarily talking about marketing speak here. Are we operating from a standpoint of, with our brand, that we have similar products, consumers, and pricing when we're out in the marketplace? When we're looking at the industry, do we look at it from the standpoint of having the same products and a lot of competitors? Or from a generic standpoint, is everyone a competitor and we're competing for all the dollars? Now, depending upon what type of business and industry you're in, competition can fall into any one of these three categories. But I think more importantly, when we look at business plans, you need to understand that you'll have to operate in every one of these at any given time, no matter what your particular offering of products and services may be. From a legal standpoint, we look at the Sherman Antitrust Act, and we'll have a little bit more detail into that, and the Clayton Act, and how they really set the stage for us to have competition from a regulatory standpoint. And then there are some self-regulatory bodies, such as the Better Business Bureau, and the things that you can do from a compliance standpoint within your industry that help frame the industry. Let's take a look at the Sherman Antitrust Act. It really started in 1890, and it was passed by Congress to really prohibit trust. But the key piece here is that Trust were these arrangements with stockholders in several companies that were transferring shares to a single set of trustees. So it's as if these people are being given an unfair advantage. And so what the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890 did was it authorized the federal government as an institute and to really go against trust in order to dissolve them and, in essence, outlawed monopolies. Now, if you take the Clayton Act, which was originally enacted to exempt unions from the scope of antitrust laws, today it's primarily used to prohibit the suppression of free competition by making illegal for business practices such as price discrimination and the creation of a monopoly. So think in terms of these two acts really allowing for competition to be open, almost transparent, but to be free within the capitalistic marketplace we operate within. Here are some definitions that I think will be of significance to you, centered around these five factors that we've talked about: social factors, economic factors, technological factors, competitive factors, and then last but not least, legal factors. Make sure you understand these definitions and how they can help you in the environmental factors in the business plan. So, what did we learn today? We learned that these particular factors can influence the plan and should do so in a positive way. But more than anything, they keep our focus steady in the development of the plan so that we make sure we can be competitive. Here is your thought for the day. A journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step.